Hi, and welcome to Comedy Recapped. Today we will be examining 1988's Married to the Mob. Beware, spoilers ahead. We start off watching Frank and Tommy waiting for the train to pull into the station, and they talk about some problems they've been having with Frank's wife, Angela. Just then, the train pulls in, and the fat man shows up to board it. Tommy and Frank follow closely behind him, and they end up sitting right behind him. When the train goes through a tunnel, Frank pulls out his weapon and shoots the fat man in the back of the head with a silenced pistol. After that, Frank and Tommy prop his head up and get off at the next stop. Back in town, Angela is getting her hair done, and some of the other mafia wives gossip about how Angela runs her household. When Angela is done, she solemnly makes her way to the door, but she has to walk by all of the other wives. Just then, Connie walks in, and she compliments her new hair. When Connie asks about coming to the card game later that night, Angela tells her that she can't come over because she has to help her son study. Once she's out of the salon, Connie and the others go right back to gossiping about her. Angela makes it home with groceries, and she finds her son, Joey, is hustling the other kids for money. After she sends the other kids away, she comes inside to talk to Frank, who tries to tell her that she really should go play cards with Connie since she's the boss's wife. Angela starts to lose her patience when Joey comes in and hands Frank his revolver. Angela is not happy with her life. Frank doesn't understand how she isn't happy with everything they have, but she just wants a normal life without the weapons, jail, and worry. Eventually, the conversation turns really sour when Angela screams that she wants a divorce. After hearing that, Frank tells her to go upstairs to take a Valium, and he laughs at her as he goes to meet with the boss. That evening, Frank shows up at a medieval restaurant, but he doesn't see the feds sitting in the car watching the mafia bosses go in. When Tony makes it inside, he makes his rounds to welcome the family, but he seems more focused on Angela when she sees Frank. Tony puts his pin on Frank's suit as he thanks him for the good job he did on the train, and he sends him upstairs. Then the feds show up, and Tony leaves to get a room for himself and the waitress. After he's done with their business, he leaves the waitress at the room, and she goes to take a bath. While she's in the bath, Frank shows up to have his fun with her, but he finds her with a bullet in her head. Just then, Tony appears behind him, and he shoots him dead. The next morning, Special Agent Downey gets a phone call, and he goes to the crime scene at the hotel. Once there, he explains that this could be the crime that they could use to hang Tony. He gets put back on the case. Meanwhile, Angela spots Tony at Frank's funeral, and he gives her a slight grin. When Angela gets back home, she tries to run the funeral gatherings, but when she spots Joey fighting with Tony Jr., she goes to break them up. Tony shows up just then, and he pretends to help split them up. Angela thanks him for all of his help, but Tony starts to get up close and personal to reassure her that she's not going to be alone. He swears that he's going to take care of her. Eventually, he comes in to kiss her, and Agent Downey spots them from his hideout van. So does one of the wives in the house. Angela tells him to keep his hands off of her, and she heads to the backyard with Joey. The next day, Angela goes to the grocery store, but she's harassed by the mafia wives who corner her to talk about her possibly getting with Tony. Connie warns her to watch herself around Tony, and she lets her go with a warning. When Angela gets home, she finds Joey has a bunch of new toys and money, and Joey tells her that Tony showed up to bring gifts for the two of them. She takes a second to tell Joey that Tony isn't really family, and he shouldn't take anything from him ever again. After sending Joey to his room, Angela takes a moment to look through what Tony sent, and later, Angela calls Goodwill to come and take all of the furnishings and goods from the house. Then, she packs up the car for her and Joey, and they head out. What they don't know is that Agent Downey and his partner are following her into town, and they plan to use her to get to Tony. Once they get in the city, Angela drives them to their new apartment, and Joey is amazed at how small it is. She assures him that things are going to get better when she gets a job, and they'll live a life they can be proud of. Back in the suburb, Tony and his mafia family gather around to celebrate Connie's birthday, but his guys show up in a minute to give him Angela's new address. The next day, Angela takes Joey to his new school, and he wishes her luck on finding a job. After a day of failed interviews, Angela gives up for the day, and Downey breaks into her apartment to bug it. After that, he bumps into Tony, who shows up to bring Angela flowers, and he ends up getting in the elevator with Angela, who is headed home. He ends up having to lie and tell her that he lives on the 5th floor, and she gets off and runs into Tony. When she walks them down to their car, it turns out that Connie is also spying on them. After everyone leaves, Angela spots a beauty salon across the street with a help wanted sign, and she goes over to interview. After getting a nice haircut, she lands the job, When Angela heads back home, she runs into Downey again, and she makes him take notice of her haircut. Later that evening, Angela shows up at his fake apartment, and she asks him out on a date. He awkwardly accepts, and Friday night, they go out for dinner. That same night, Tony and the Mafia head out for dinner, and a hitman takes out 2 of Tony's guys and takes their place behind his car. When Tony goes to the fast food joint, his car gets jumped, but he manages to kill all of his assailants. When he leaves, he calls the rest of the family to sit down for a mediation. Meanwhile, Angela and Downey make it back to her apartment, and they are still buzzed for the night. Downey decides to stay and visit for a while, and Angela ends up spilling club soda on Downey's lap. When he goes to the bathroom to clean up, Connie bursts in and searches the apartment for Tony. When she finds that Downey is the only one there, she decides to take her leave. Downey takes a moment to see if Angela is alright, and she talks about how she thinks she was crazy to think she could get away and start over. She ends up telling Downey about Frank, and how she just wants to get away from the family, and he admits that he misjudged her. After hearing this, Downey takes the bugs out of her apartment, and he goes to lie down with her to comfort her. In the morning, Downey's partner shows up and takes him back to the agency after they find out that Tony's guys got shot down at the restaurant. His superiors tell him that he needs to get Tony now, and they bring in Angela for questioning. When she gets to headquarters, she finds Downey waiting in a room with the other agents, and they go over what they want from her. Downey's bosses blackmail her into helping, and later on, she goes to meet Tony at his office. Tony is surprised to find her there, but Angela does her best to convince him that she genuinely wants him around. When she finds out that he's going to Miami, she convinces Tony that she wants to go along with him, and she finds that the feds are coming with them. When Angela goes to the bathroom to freshen up, Connie shows up to see Tony off, and she tells him about her trip to Angela's house. One of the Mafia members sneaks Angela onto the plane, and when Tony gets on, he hints to the fact that he knows about another man being at her apartment. Back at the airport, Connie calls the hotel Tony is going to stay at to set up a surprise, and she finds out that he already has the honeymoon suite booked. So she hops on the next plane to Miami. When Tony and Angela get to the hotel, he seems to sense something suspicious, and he spots Downey walking in with multiple disguises. When Tony and Angela head up to the room, 2 of Tony's guys sit with Downey at the bar. Tony gives Angela a beautiful necklace, and it seems to resemble the one that he gave the waitress he shot. She goes to give him a ring she got him, but he notices that her hands are trembling. When he puts on the ring, we see that it's bugged, and the feds are listening in. Suddenly, Tony's guys bring in Downey, and Tony brings in Angela. Just then, Tony rips off Downey's fake mustache, and Angela grabs a weapon to try and get them out of the hotel. She calls him out for killing Frank, and Tony's men start to question whether he did or not. Just then, Connie comes pounding on the door, and Downey tells her that Tony has been sleeping with Angela. Connie pulls out a revolver and shoots off multiple shots, and Downey takes this chance to disarm one of Tony's guys and shoots the others. Meanwhile, Tony tells Connie that he's going to change, but it's Angela that punches the daylights out of Connie. Tony tries to run, but federal agents bombard the room and arrest him. Later, Tony is escorted through the courthouse, and he stops in the bathroom to take a leak. Little does he know that Connie is in disguise as a janitor, and she shoots his willy off with a sawed-off shotgun. It turns out that that encounter was just a bad dream, but Tony really is in prison. Meanwhile, Angela goes back to her job at the hair salon, and she has been promoted to an actual hairdresser. Downey calls the shop and tells Angela to look across the street, and she sees that he's actually there waiting to see her. He tells her that he just wants a haircut, and she tells him that she can fit him in. During his session, Angela tells him that he might deserve a second chance since she fell hard for him, and she offers it to him. He graciously accepts it, and they make out in front of the sink. And that wraps up this recap. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, please subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss a single video.